Hi, hey, hello, and welcome to another great episode of a Colts podcast. My name's Brandon, and I'm joined here by your co-host, my best friend, Andrew Moore. How are you doing today, kind sir?
Doing pretty well, man. Week 2 of camp's in the books. Pads got put on. There was a skirmish. Things are starting to heat up down there in Westfield, and I mean, it's pretty hot out. I don't know if I'd like to be out practicing in 90-degree weather with high humidity. Wyatt Law, thanks for joining us, brother.
What's up?
But yeah, it's the Colts have got a lot done this week. There's some guys that have stood out that we're going to talk about. There's rumors flying around, so bunch of stuff to get to today. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Speaking of that 90-degree humid heat, still no air conditioning in this household. So,
Oof.
I mean, I am just sweating, just sitting in a chair, sweating.
It's a crisp 69 degrees in this house.
Thanks.
Nice.
Nice. I have to take like a not cold shower, but like I got to take a cool shower at night to cool off right before bed. You know what I mean? And that's after, getting up in the morning, going to the gym, showering. So, I mean, I'm really using up the water. Water bill is not going to look good when you get that first full one. But
listen, hot take, cold showers, very high on the list. I hate hot showers. Lukewarm is the hottest I will go with a shower.
Oh, yeah. Paige is lava and I am, bath water. That's the point, right? I'm in the bathtub. I want to, it's standing, but still. So typically, I'll hop out of the shower and say, all right, babe, you can turn on the lava. Because I'm not about it. Shut up, whatever you're about to say, because we're going to start talking about some important things, Andrew. First of all, in order to be able to better partake in this next thing, make sure you go follow a Colts podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at a Colts podcast. It's pretty straightforward. These days, you can Google our name and you'll find us. And as a matter of fact, I just did the old Google.
Yeah.
You find us and our friends over at the Locked On Colts podcast. Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks. Big fan of Dan Dockich and kicker Zach Hicks. I love kickers. I don't know what his problem is. But anyway, and the reason that's so important to go follow us there is so that you can join our Colts podcast ticket giveaway. 2 tickets to the Colts versus the Lions, August 20th, 1 p.m. at Lucas Oil Stadium. Rules are like a Colts podcast on Facebook. Follow at a Colts podcast at Andrew Moore NFL and at BM Moses. That's 2 M's, BM Moses 9 on Twitter. Subscribe to a Colts podcast on video, on YouTube, on video, where you watch the videos on YouTube. And bonus entry, as decided by yours truly last week, if you leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot of that bad boy and shoot it over to me or Andrew or the podcast account. Have you gotten any of those?
I have. I've got a couple of them. So people are putting in their extra tickets, their extra votes, and who knows, it may be the difference in deciding whether or not you get the tickets. Just an extra entry into the raffle. And it takes you like 5 seconds to do so. Just go ahead, give us a 5-star review, enter in for some tickets.
Yeah, and I know it's just the preseason, but it's still a free game. Rumor has it, maybe even free parking. That's TBD.
We'll see.
We will see. Andrew, are we ready?
Let's get into it, brother.
Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts training camp of 2022, week 2 update. I mean, it sounds like it's getting a little dicey, which means the boys are putting in the work, putting in the effort. We haven't had any of our guest teams yet around, right?
Correct. The Lions don't come till not even next week, but the week after that. That's the only team that will be doing joint practices with the Colts.
Okay. So no visitors yet. General observations from camp since last week, Andrew. Let's chat about it. Sure.
Yeah, like I said before, the pads got put on for 2 out of the 3 practices this week. So that means guys were able to hit a little bit. And kind of naturally, we saw the defense really step it up this week. I think the defense won pretty much all 3 of the days. Doesn't mean the offense didn't have their moments, but when you're talking about which side won, offense or defense, I'd say the defense came out on top every single day. There was even a moment where when practice ended, they were doing, I think it was either 11 on 11 red zone work, and the defense won 2 of the final 3 reps. And Frank Reich made the offense run suicides, run sprints to end practice. And Matt Ryan said after practice that if we're not going to execute, we deserve to run those. So the intensity did pick up a little bit. We saw Stephon Gilmore, a nice hit on Alec Pierce. There was a moment where Julian Blackman put a nice hit on Nyheim Hines. So guys are starting to lay the wood a little bit. There was a skirmish that we'll talk about in a little bit with a guy that had a skirmish last year. I don't think we're surprised that he'll be in this, but yeah, the intensity definitely picked up. This was the last week that the Colts did some hard install. Next week is it's going to start being more execution based and kind of narrowing down the playbook and the scheme to things that this offense and this defense do well. But there were some guys that definitely stood out that we'll talk about throughout. Some rookies. The pass rush definitely looks like it's coming along, which is great news for Colts fans. I think it was a productive week all around in a very hot Westfield, Indiana this week.
And definitely some names that we're about to talk about throughout this that popped up more this week than last week. And maybe some names not as, dominant this week as they were last week, but Matt Ryan is going to remain a topic of conversation throughout these Colts camp updates. Andrew, anything different this week out of Matt Ryan or exciting that maybe nobody's heard about yet?
I think from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's just the consistency from Matt Ryan. He has yet. I mean, do you remember last year where we were talking about every other day? It wasn't necessarily Carson Wentz because he wasn't practicing, but it was more. I mean, Sam Ellinger and Jacob Eason throwing multiple picks within 11 on 11 sessions. Matt Ryan has had 1 interception, and it came on day 1 in 7 on 7 work. He hasn't thrown an interception yet in 11 on 11 work. The passes are coming out crisp. There are times where maybe he's not linking up with his receivers, but again, they're still in the beginning phases of getting the timing down with one another. And I think the biggest thing that has stood out is, I mean, we know the leadership and each individual teammate of Matt Ryan has talked about it. I think each time they spoke with the media here, we've heard each time them talk about their leadership, but being at practice and seeing that Matt Ryan goes when he's not on the field in between reps, Matt Ryan is out there talking with these guys and actually just giving them the extra advice in between the reps. So he's standing there with Alec Pierce talking about how he wants them to run a certain route, or he's talking with Michael Pittman or Paris Campbell, where they need to be on this certain play. So that way the ball comes out on time and it's in the right place. So he's taking a very hands-on approach. He's chirping at the wide receivers and the tight ends and not necessarily putting them down.
Right.
But he just expects so much out of them. And we talked about the up-tempo style of the practices. That same feel has just continued this week. It's just a different feel around this Colts team because there's a leader at the quarterback position. It's as simple as that.
Have practices still ended early at all this week?
Practices have continued to end either early, about 10 minutes early, or right on time. And there hasn't been very many mistakes as far as having the offense line up again or false starts or anything like that. They're getting through practice still at a very rapid rate.
And everyone keeps, all the players last week, as we mentioned last week as well, you drinking a little, what is that? Is that orange juice or is it Gatorade?
It's a margarita, brother.
Margarita.
Thirsty Thursday in a Colts groom cup. Shout out to my fiance's friend for making that for us.
Very nice. And I'm just drinking water. So look at me. How things changed this week. Last week we talked about how all the players seem to be on the same page. Like they noticed a change, that there's a huge focus on trying to make sure they're ready week 1 and avoid a slow start. Matt Ryan seems to be, in my opinion, driving that himself as well really well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Matt Ryan is it's just a more focused, and there's a more sense of urgency this year than any other year. And it's not really just with Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan is driving the ship. He's the leader of this Colts team. but you can notice it in Michael Pittman, in Jonathan Taylor, in Quentin Nelson, and then the guys on the defensive side, Yannick Ngakoue, DeForest Buckner, Stephon Gilmore. There's just, it's a different feel. I keep getting back to it because it's just you can feel it even in the stands or even standing along the sidelines, that it's just a different team. These guys are ultra focused. It's a serious environment. I mean, the guys are joking around a little bit, having fun during practice, but when they're set, it's time to go, and they're out there to execute and get work done. So as we see here, this question by Wyatt Law, it's a great question. Is there a significant difference between Ryan and Foles and their relative approach? Are both get effing set sort of leaders? So from what I've seen at practice, is Nick Foles isn't the vocal leader or the vocal quarterback that Matt Ryan is. And that's probably because this is Matt Ryan's team. He is the quarterback. Nick Foles has accepted that. He even said in his introductory press conference, this is Matt Ryan's team. I'm here to help Matt Ryan. So Nick Foles hasn't been as vocal, but you can see that Nick Foles went out there with the second team in 7-on-7 or 11-on-11. He does have a good command of the offense, and he is making sure guys are in line, but Matt Ryan's really the guy that's leading this team and the engine that's driving this Colts offense.
Right. And I don't know a whole ton about Nick Foles, but I'm pretty sure he's more the quiet, more like an Eli Manning, more similar to Frank Reich, as I assume, in his behavior. So I can't imagine him being a get F and set kind of guy, but he seems to be getting along well with the team and the other backup quarterbacks.
Well, Nick Foles is the guy that comes in and says, this is Matt's team. I'm just here to help him wherever. And then when Matt Ryan was asked, how do you keep these guys engaged and focused? Matt Ryan tells us in the media, he goes, you keep a foot up their ass. So you just see the intensity that Matt Ryan brings to the quarterback position.
That's wild. I love it. I mean, Matt Ryan is more
Phillip Rivers,
more Peyton Manning.
Or Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was like this in practice. True. Like he was not necessarily.
Luck podcast, by the way. Thank you, Zach Kiefer and Zach Hicks for all the credit he's received for that.
But yeah, not necessarily Andrew Luck in the media, but Andrew Luck in practice. He was throwing F-bombs out there. He's getting guys and keeping guys accountable, and that's what Matt Ryan's been doing.
Right. All right. Wide receiver group, Andrew. I'm going to throw this out there in the beginning of this. I was at dinner with some of Paige's family that I had not met yet last night, and her grandpa is apparently a big Colts fan. So Paige starts talking to him, about that, getting me and him going. He says, "Is that TJ Hilton playing this year?" And I said, "Not yet. Nothing that I know of yet." And he said, "Well, I saw somebody running out there Saturday night in the 13." I was like, "Uh-oh. Got somebody wearing TJ's jersey out there." I can't wait till a comment says it's TY, as if I don't know that. But yeah, that was very funny. Still no update on him, I know. But let's chit chat about these receivers.
So I think I'm going to start out with Michael Pittman. I mean, last week we said there wasn't anything maybe big about Pittman. He was just kind of doing his own thing. Week 2, as the physicality has ramped up, Michael Pittman Jr. has ramped up. And are we really surprised about that? I certainly am not. Michael Pittman Jr. he seems like he's taken another step. He's been catching everything over the middle. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of Michael Pittman is over the middle this year in that mid-range area where he should really excel. But he's been going up against guys like Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Facet, not necessarily Kenny Moore because of Pittman's mostly been outside, but when he's gone up against Stephon Gilmore, he's won multiple times, bodied Stephon Gilmore, ripped the ball out of his hands, just been that physical presence. And it's just kind of showing that, again, Michael Pittman is such a physical player that when the pads come on and when things get more physical, he's going to go out there and dominate. So Paris Campbell, he's still been creating that chemistry with Matt Ryan, and I haven't seen anything to displace what I said last week, that he looks really good. And then finally we'll talk about
I'm just going to give Andrew a minute to talk about all the receivers, guys, and then I'll drop back in eventually.
Exactly. This is the give and take, or I take and you just listen. But anyways, Ashton Dulin made a hell of a
No,
catch.
shut up. I was not being serious. My God, Michael Pittman Jr., we talked about this last year. Unbelievable, this guy. We talked about this last year about how he flips his switch when he gets out on the field, which blows my mind. He seems like the most shy, quiet, nice guy off the field in interviews. You see him posting stuff on his Instagram, different stuff like that. And then you see him getting into scuffles on the field. See him getting into scuffles in practice. I mean, just turns on beast mode. So the physicality gaining year after year as he gets more and more confident every year. That just makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm not surprised he's bodying Stephon Gilmore.
Right. And I think Pittman is also under the tutelage of Reggie Wayne. And just with the group of guys that are on this wide receiver group, I think Pittman knows that he needs to take another step up, not only just for this team, but for him personally. He said that he wants to be known as a bona fide number one wide receiver in this league. And I mean, he did it for one season, but it's another thing to be able to go out there and produce again, another to increase from his statistics from a year ago when he had 88 catches for 1,088 yards and 6 touchdowns. Pittman wants to go out there and get 90 to 100 catches. He wants to get 1,200 yards. He wants to get 8 to 10 touchdowns. He wants to be one of the top receivers in this league. He's not satisfied with just going out there and being a number one on this team. He wants to be a number one in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be. And again, we've talked about this. I don't think there's anyone better than him in the division right now. So
I would agree.
I mean, you behave like the best receiver in your division, put up those numbers. People are going to have to talk about him. That makes you. I mean, I guess if you're just taking one from each division, that puts you at least in top 10.
I would say, I mean, if he can have another season, the top 10 is not out of the question for Michael Pittman after this season.
I agree.
I mean, I think right now he's in the top 20, I would say. And I think if he has another stellar season, very well could go into top 10 category.
All right. So I'll skip over Paris Campbell because I'm waiting until the season, or at least preseason, to see something again. I think he needs to get a lot of work in the preseason. And if he gets hurt, whoop-de shit, what's new? Then you don't have such trouble with the wide receiver 4 position and who you're keeping on the team as well. But Ashton Dulin was making some noise yesterday on the internet. Highlight catch. I think that one came from Ellinger.
That one came from Nick Foles at the end
was
of
practice.
Nick Foles?
I thought I saw number 3.
Number 3 is Jack Cohn.
Okay, well then I'm way off. Either way, highlight catch. Sticky hands. Everybody's talking about don't sleep on Ashton Dulin. Don't sleep on Ashton Dulin. I'm not sleeping on Ashton Dulin, but I don't know if he's number 4 or if he just remains very important to special teams or how that works out. What's your take on Ashton Dulin? Is it just because of a couple highlights this week that because you're tweeting about him, talking about him too, along with some of our buddies, right? So what do you think about Ashton this year?
I know you're a big Desmond Patman fan. And I love Patman too as a person.
Hell yeah.
Ashton Dulin is the number 4 wide receiver on this team, and it's no competition. Desmond Patman is going to have to basically from now on have the preseason and training camp of his life in order to pass Ashton Dulin. Ashton Dulin, he's a guy that has great speed, probably one of the, if not the fastest guy on the team. He's got size. He's 6'2", over 200 pounds. And he's a guy that is still going to be a top special teamer as a gunner. But Ashton Dulin, and it's not just us in the media talking about it. It's Frank Reich talking about it. It's Chris Ballard talking about it. It's Matt Ryan talking about how his confidence in Ashton Dulin is growing. And that's big when your quarterback is talking about you in the way that Matt Ryan has talked about Dulin. He's just going out there and he's showing that he can play not only just to be a speed guy in the slot. Ashton Dulin is going out there and he's playing all 3 wide receiver roles and he's doing it well. And we forget that Ashton Dulin is one of the best blocking wide receivers on this team. And for a team that's going to continue to pound the rock with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, there's a role on this team for Ashton Doolin. And I think that's why so many people are excited, just because he can do so many different things. He can be the Zach Pascal for this team moving forward. And if you, I mean, is he going to be a top wide receiver for this team? No. But is he going to have a prominent role in this offense as the number 4 wide receiver? Absolutely.
Look, here's the thing for me right now is I just like had this moment, like, can you believe all the time we're spending talking about these wide receivers and how excited we are about a wide receiver group that, oh, by the way, we also have the best running back in the league. And then Stats Matt, of course, has to come in and say Hines, number 4 wide receiver for sure.
I'd say Hines number 2 or 3 wide receiver, buddy. I'm higher on Hines than
there
that.
We go. But anyway, I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that we have what we have on top of these receivers that we're so excited about. I mean, it just blows my mind. I haven't been this excited about an offense in a while. Moving on from Ashton Doolin, Andrew, Alec Pierce, Drew Ogletree. Talk to me.
Rookies that are carving out roles right away. And we'll start with Alec Pierce here. And I wrote a big piece on Alec Pierce this week about kind of going behind the scenes of why the Colts are throwing so much at Alec Pierce early. Not only is Alec Pierce going up against Stephon Gilmore pretty much every day in practice, it seems like him and Gilmore are matched up one-on-one. Matt Ryan is spending extra time with him. Reggie Wayne is spending extra time with him. It's because the Colts know that Alec Pierce can handle this. Number one, because of how smart he is. I mean, the kid finished an engineering degree in 3 years. Some of our buddies had to take 5 years, and they're pretty smart guys to finish their engineering degrees. It's just not. It's not too big for him.
Alec Pierce playing college sport, by the way.
Right, exactly. And like I said last week, Alec Pierce looks like he belongs. Nothing is too big for him. He's going out there. Yeah, he's making mistakes, but not catastrophic mistakes that you think, oh, he shouldn't be out there. Alec Pierce has been with the starters from day one of camp, and he's looked like he's belonged as a starter. He should be out there as the number 3 wide receiver behind Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell. And it's a trial by fire with Alec Pierce because the Colts have such a big role planned for this guy. Going up against Stephon Gilmore every day, who has been very impressive in camp, looks like a Pro Bowl cornerback out there. It's your welcome to the NFL moment where you're going up against one of the best guys in the NFL every day in practice. It's going to make the actual games when you're going up against cornerbacks of lesser talent. It's going to make it easy for you. So the Colts are doing this deliberately to Alec Pierce, and Alec Pierce is thriving. He's making some plays against Stephon Gilmore as the practices go along. So love to see it, and I think the Colts are very excited and happy with his progress so far.
And what stands out about that whole story to me, Andrew, is Matt Ryan sticking around to work with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Starting quarterbacks don't stick around after practice or put in extra work with guys they don't think can hack it or guys they don't want to throw the football to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that says not just a lot about Matt Ryan's leadership, but glowing what he thinks about Alec Pierce himself. Now, Drew Ogletree, another rookie standout in camp, apparently. What have you been liking that you've seen from him?
So, Brandon, while I talk about Drew Ogletree, I'm going to give you a chance to go check your phone, go look at the Colts Twitter, and go ahead and see the catch that Drew Ogletree made today in camp. It's going to blow your mind. But this guy, especially this week, Drew Ogletree has really impressed. And I've got a piece coming out tomorrow morning about Ogletree and about what the Colts are currently thinking about Ogletree as far as what his role might be in this offense. But here's a guy that was drafted in the 6th round coming out of Youngstown State, as Brandon sees the catch. Guy coming out of Youngstown State who played 4 years of wide receiver in college football. This is technically only his 2nd year playing tight end. He played it for 1 season in college. And he's gone out there and he's been one of the most impressive guys in training camp. I mean, I talked about Jelani Woods, how he looked like he was the real deal. Jelani Woods has kind of struggled a little bit this week. He hasn't necessarily been making the plays. He's had some drops, some mistakes, and the guy that's really ascended is Drew Ogletree. The Colts are very, very high on Ogletree, not only because of his size. I mean, he's 6'5", 260 pounds, but he's got his background as a wide receiver. He still has that speed and that fluid movement, to play the wide receiver position. And he's been running with the ones because Mo Alley Cox got a little bit banged up last week. Nothing too serious, but they're just, again, precautionary. No need to rush it because of being in camp. So Mo Alley Cox has been in and out, not taking all of the reps, but it's allowed guys like Kylan Granson, Jelani Woods, and Drew Ogletree to all get first team reps with the tight ends. And when Ogletree has been in there,
Right.
he's been very, very impressive. So a guy that wasn't on a lot of people's radars. I mean, we thought, oh, he might be tight end 4. He might just make the practice squad and kind of be developmental. If Ogletree keeps this up,
it's Kylan Granson that's gone.
And you know me, I'm not really prone to hyperbole or hyping up, being over too hyped about guys. I think Ogletree could legitimately have a big role in this offense, either taking snaps away from Kylan Granson, or even taking snaps away from Jelani Woods, his rookie teammate. So he's been very, very impressive, and the Colts staff are very high on Ogletree.
Let's talk about the defense a little bit. Andrew, you're telling me that the pass rush is starting to take form. We'll talk about that in the defense in general. I believe Jake and Zach just did a big thing with what this offensive line is going to look like with our new defensive coordinator running the show. What do you think about the pass rush? What are you seeing in practice right now that gives us high hopes that we might actually have a pass rush this year?
So when the Colts don't have pads on, it's really hard to kind of get a sense of what the pass rush is going to look like. But since the pads were on 2 out of 3 times this week, they were able to actually go at one another, offensive line versus defensive line. First thing that stands out to me, Yannick Ngakoue, the guy, relentless motor that we had heard about. It's definitely there. Very, very quick off the snap. Yannick Ngakoue has been, I wouldn't even say burning Matt Pryor, because Matt Pryor has been doing a pretty good job over there at left tackle. But Ngakoue seems like he is still finding a way into the backfield on a lot of different plays. And having that kind of edge presence out there, it's something the Colts haven't had in a long time. It's not even the Justin Houston effect. He's performing at a higher rate than Justin Houston was when he was in Indy. So Yannick Ngakoue, as advertised for this Colts defense. And then today, DeForest Buckner, a guy that's had a little bit of a back issue, so he's been limited in how much he's been able to practice. Today, Buckner absolutely dominated practice. He was wrecking almost every single play that he was out there, going in against guys like Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly. He was making progress and getting into the backfield quite often today. And it just kind of, it piques your interest, because when you think of the regular season coming about and you have Buckner and Ngakoue rushing the passer on every single play, haven't even talked about Kwity Paye over on the left side, who's been showing some improvement that he made throughout the offseason. This pass rush really could be special. If Ngakoue stays healthy, Buckner stays healthy, and Paye stays healthy, all 3 of those guys, it's going to be tough to block all of them on every single down. Ngakoue's changing this defensive line as far as a pass rush is concerned. Buckner changed it as far as kind of stopping the run, being that force in the interior. Ngakoue's that edge presence that the Colts have been looking for. Right. So far, so good.
Very excited about that. You were not an Ngakoue lover.
I wasn't.
Andrew's one of those guys going, we don't need that kind of guy. We don't need this. We don't need that. Now the guy's following Andrew on Twitter. He
my close personal friend.
Reads all of his articles that he writes about him. And they're probably going to be pals. Maybe going to be on the show. Andrew said he's going to just pull that out.
Certainly try.
Hey, I'm the guy that writes those articles you like so much. You want to come on my podcast? Great. We can't pay you.
We don't need to pay our guests. Can't donate his time.
Supposed to pay the guests. One day we'll pay the guests. but not stats, man. Defense in general, Andrew. I saw the Colts post a few highlights from the defense as well, not just the offense. Little Kenny Moore action in there, I believe, as well. How are we looking overall in the defense when guys like Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce aren't showing up? Guys like Stephon Gilmore.
Well, like I said, the defense has won 2 of the last 3 days, and again, not necessarily that the Colts offense has looked bad.
Right, we got a good defense.
The Colts have a good defense. You're going up against a unit. Let's name off the names. I mean, Unique Ngakoue, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Stephon Gilmore, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon. Shaquille Leonard isn't even out there yet, and
Right.
this defense is already making plays. That's why I tweeted it out today. I think this Colts defense, if everyone can stay healthy,
why is his nickname not Diesel?
Whose?
Leonard. DSL. Yikes, by the way. Diesel.
Yikes.
Diesel.
I mean, I think some people call him D. So you can call him that. But anyways, I mean, top 5 unit. I really think this Colts defense has that type of potential. Again, second week of training camp. Let's take it with a grain of salt. Let's see what happens when the games actually matter. Yep. But the pieces are in place there. And now it's up to the players to execute, the coaches to get them in the right positions. But I don't think there shouldn't be an excuse for this Colts defense to be right up there as a top 5 unit in the league when you look at the firepower they've acquired and the guys that are taking the next step on this defense.
Yeah, and I mean, we won't have any excuses when the season starts with the schedule we have. I mean, I will stand by. I mean, we got to win weeks 1 and 2 easy. I believe we can beat the Chiefs, who are going to be playing away, home, away. So a little back and forth for them. I think we can take care of business then. I think we can beat should start out 4-0 in my opinion. So they're is also nicknamed losing both of us. Did you go black?
I didn't go black, but you froze up for a little bit.
All right. Well, you'll never go back. Anyway, moving along. I was just saying that we can't afford a slow start. I believe we will start well, but like you said, they're going to have to perform and show it when it matters, not just in camp.
Right.
All right, let's move it along. Did you miss the part where I said, after I said, why doesn't Darius call himself Diesel? And then I remembered the actual Shaq calls himself Diesel. Like that's the Shaq.
Yeah, exactly. Shaq.
So Diesel. That doesn't work either. Injury updates for Mr. Darius Shaquille Leonard and DeForest Buckner. Andrew.
So like I was talking about Buckner, it seems like his is just more precautionary. He looked perfectly fine today as he was blowing up every single play on the interior of the Colts defensive line. He should be fine. No real update on Shaquille Leonard. He's the Ballard and Reich today both said still making good progress. As Stats Matt says, Brandon is the king of the dad joke. He really is.
Classic.
Shaquille Leonard is making progress. His return to the field isn't imminent, is what they have said. So I think he's out at probably at least a few more weeks. Probably looking towards the end of August before we might start thinking about seeing Leonard back in action. But it sounds like there hasn't been any setbacks in his recovery, which is a good sign. So, and he's been out there at every practice. He's been jogging around. He's been joking around. Doesn't look like he's in any pain. Obviously, they're probably taking it cautiously before he can get back to full speed. But as far as his spirits and him jogging around, he looks good.
All right. And what about DeForest Buckner, Andrew?
So Buckner, like I said, he wrecked practice today. Doesn't seem like that's going to hinder him. I did say that. Precautionary reasons. He's looking good.
I'm too worried about stats. Matt, call me dad joke king. First skirmish of our training camp. I did not see anything on this. Colts obviously aren't going to post that first thing, So was it Michael Pittman Jr. getting a little rough?
Michael Pittman Jr. was involved. Like I said, does it surprise you? No. Michael Pittman Jr. and Rodney McLeod got got into it. It was a physical block by those two. Couple haymakers were thrown. I don't know if any of them.
Ooh,
I don't know if any of them connected, but they separated the group. They separated the two fairly quickly, and practice moved on. Wasn't a huge brawl or anything,
throwing
but
fists.
some punches were thrown. But I
I
mean,
hope
hey,
it's not a brawl. We're all one team.
It's a very hot. It's been a very hot week down there in Westfield. Now it's 2 weeks straight of hitting one another. Pads are on, things are getting a little bit more intense. These things happen. So as Frank Reich said, he likes the competition and being there on the edge, having that intensity, but you can't let it go over the edge and cross the line too often. So
I do agree with Matt that the fist flying a little different. That is a little more than you usually see from one teammate to another. But I mean, these guys are new to each other. This McLeod guy's not been around. It's fine. I love to see it. I especially love to see it out of Michael Pittman Jr.
We'll see. I think it will be more prevalent when the Lions come to town. We'll have to see how that all goes down.
That'll be fun. Hopefully it's not so damn hot. I'm sweating right now. I mean, I am just profusely sweating. Last thing on the defense, Wyatt Law says if Big Grove isn't constantly absorbing double teams, he can actually bring some pressure up the middle as well. Absolutely true.
Very
Big
true.
Grove, underrated defensive tackle.
And I think when Stewart isn't in, you're going to have Dio Odangbo in there next to Buckner on those pass rushing snaps, because Odangbo is more of a pass rusher along the interior than Grover Stewart is. Tyquan Lewis as well. So both of those guys, when you put them in there with Ngakoue, Buckner, and Pay, they're going to be able to eat some and find some opportunities.
All right, and let's chat about some of these camp competition updates. First one, tight end position. Is it Granson versus Woods, or is it Granson versus Ogletree?
I think right now it's after this week. Granson did have a good week. He did bounce back. Nothing spectacular, but he made some catches in red zone work. He caught a few touchdowns. So Granson did have a bounce back week. So as of right now, I would think it's Granson as number 2. But when you're looking at tight end 3, I think right now it's a toss up between Ogletree and Woods, which I didn't think was going to happen. But hey, competition brings out the best. And if Ogletree,
you're saying the same thing last week about Jelani Woods, though.
I said Jelani Woods was looking good. So that's the thing. It can change week to week, but because of Ogletree's consistency and how much he's flashed, he's right there with Woods as far as who could be that tight end 3.
Love that. And then we still have Pryor versus Raymond. Last I checked, Pryor was long ahead in this competition. Has anything changed?
Not really. Pryor is still the left tackle. Raymond's been doing well with the second team. And he has been holding his own. Colts are happy with this progress, but as of right now, I don't think Pryor is in danger of losing his starting role at left tackle.
I'm skipping right over this next one. Pinner and Fries. It's Pinner.
Pinner.
Take it off the list, Andrew. We're not talking about it next week. Take it off the list. The one that's still interesting, though, Rodgers and Faison. What does it look like this week? Because last week, Rodgers was taking second team reps and Faison was all with first team. So
yep, and it's about the same. So Faison really hasn't given up any ground to Isaiah Rodgers. Isaiah Rodgers has been making plays, but Faison's been holding his own on that first team. He hasn't really, and I think this is key, he hasn't done anything necessarily to lose that spot. I mean, he isn't going out there. He did give up a big throw, a double move to Michael Pittman Jr., but hey, sometimes you're going to get beat. It's the NFL. Stephon Gilmore has gotten beat a couple times in practice. But Faison has been doing fairly well. He's out there. He's being consistent and helping in the run game. He is sticking to the receivers when he's out there. So I don't think it's necessarily anything that Rodgers is doing wrong. It's just that Faison's been playing at a pretty high level.
All right, we'll throw one in here before we go down to the strong safety. Competition we didn't get to talk about because they just started it in pads, the kicking competition. Heard Blankenship might be in trouble from Stats Matt. I've not heard that update yet. All I saw was they both went 4 for 4, but I believe that was yesterday, the day before. It was there new news today that I missed out on for the kickers?
So what we've been allowed to see so far, Hot Rod, Rodrigo Blankenship, and Jake Verity, both of them have made every single kick that they've kicked open to the media, open to the fans. Every single one's been good. Today, they did a little 2-minute drill, and the Colts first team offense got it to within field goal range, about a 50-yarder. both Blankenship and Verity both hit that 50-yarder. So far, both of them made all their kicks. I think what's standing out with Verity though is that he's got a leg. He's got a boot on there, and the ball just comes off his leg a little bit different than it does Blankenship. So that's something to watch. If Verity ends up having quite a bit more distance to his leg and they're about the same accuracy wise, then I think the competition could heat up. But right now, I think Hot Rod still has the edge.
I personally, we all know how I feel about Hot Rod, and I hope Hot Rod's on the team. Hot Rod has struggled with long kicks in the regular season. However, last year injury, but also, I mean, he's a smaller guy. He's getting bigger. He's hitting the weights. It's gonna be fine. I met the guy. He's not tiny.
I mean,
close
he was
personal friend.
Yeah, you did meet him down there. I forgot about that.
Yeah, ran into him in Carmel. No big deal.
But last season, before he got hurt in the Baltimore Ravens game pregame, he was 9 for 10 on field goals. So not terrible for a kicker that was on pace to have a very good season.
And we're not a team that is afraid to go for it, in very odd, field positions. And maybe that's because of worry that our kicker can't get the ball there. But I think we all know that's just Frank Reich's attitude. And by the way, get ready to see more of that this year. Matt Ryan's going to be all for it. He's like, hell yeah, we're going for it. I love this guy. So let's move along to strong safety. McLeod and Cross. I mean, can't be fighting your number one wide receiver, right? So who knows? Now
McLeod, he did start out camp with a little bit of an injury, had a procedure done in the offseason. He's come back, and while Cross has been the guy that's primarily been with the ones, McLeod did, as he's been getting back with the team, more familiar with the scheme, McLeod has started to take some of those first team reps. Now they're going back and forth a little bit. So I still think Cross probably gets it in the end. And I still think he leads right now, but McLeod is starting to take some of those first team reps away from Cross.
Matt, absolutely not. I'm not even putting it on the screen. So, I mean, do you think Cross is still ahead in this now that McLeod is, back to action?
Yeah, I would say Cross is still the leader in the doghouse for that strong safety spot.
Okay. Is Rodney Thomas getting reps at safety?
Rodney Thomas has been playing at safety a little bit. He's been playing some corner as well, but the 7th round pick out of Yale, he's been primarily with the third team. He's been getting some second team reps, but he hasn't really stood out yet. Marcel Dabo, if you want to talk about one of the defensive backs with a story, Marcel Dabo, the guy from the European German exchange program with the international pathway program for the NFL, he's been making some plays when given the opportunity. So that's one to watch, as possibly a guy that stays on the practice squad, kind of learns, and maybe the Colts bring him up later in the season.
Fantastic. Also, Stats Matt just kind of randomly threw in Curtis Brooks.
Brooks
just said Curtis Brooks.
Curtis Brooks along the defensive line. He's a feisty one. A 6th round pick out of Cincinnati. He looks like he could possibly be the backup 3 technique to DeForest Buckner. And I mean, he's a guy that has pretty good pass rushing skills, a little bit smaller, but man, he's got a motor. That guy just does not stop.
Love it. All right, let's move it along here. We did it again. I mean, we just finished the first segment and we're 45 minutes in. So let's talk about some other Colts news.
We dedicated 40 minutes to this time slot, so we're all right. We're a Colts podcast.
Did we did
35 to 40.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, we'll keep this short then. OBJ rumors. Andrew, how dare you little blogger boy. By the way, Stats Matt, way to go to bat for Andrew and the guys. For some reason, mentioned me in a tweet with a bunch of guys I don't belong in a tweet with, who actually know things and get information, and I do not. I just hear from Andrew. So I guess if you trust Andrew, you get to trust me, because I'm probably just repeating something he told me. Listen, anytime this conversation happens, and we actually did not have talks with Julio, which the fact that Chris Ballard said that out loud offended Julio. So he went off and said, oh yeah, they tried to talk to me. But anyway, just because somebody says, hey, things were heating up. They were talking. They were serious. And then the guy doesn't sign. That does not mean those talks never happen. Okay? Greg Doyle. And that's why I watch on YouTube. Hand motion.
Mr. Column Coming guy.
Yeah.
On his tweets. But
so yes. Go ahead, Andrew. What do you know? What have you heard? And do you have any updates since Greg Doyle shit on you?
So this is, I mean, I'm going to shout out Rashad McGinnis of the Blue Stable. He's the one that came out with it, that the Colts are in talks with Odell Beckham Jr. and the talks have been heating up. And again, you nailed it right on the head. Just because talks are heating up, that doesn't mean that the Colts are going to sign Odell Beckham Jr. And I want to be upfront about that because the Colts aren't the only team talking to Odell Beckham Jr. He's a free agent. The Rams still would like to have him back. The Raiders have been in contact with him. The Green Bay Packers have been in contact with him. That's just three of the other teams besides the Colts. But when we say talks are heating up between Odell Beckham Jr. and the Colts, that means that the talks have been the most serious that they've been in a long time.
Maybe actual negotiations being made, not just like, hey, would you be interested? Sure, I'd be interested. Let's have your people talk to my people. Exactly. Like seriously, like negotiating and talking
seriously talking about Odell joining the team. Doesn't mean he's not having serious conversations with other teams. And I mean, there's been other people that have come out and refute this. I mean, Stephen Holder of ESPN said that he's not hearing this. Zach Kiefer from The Athletic said that he's not. But Rashad McGinnis of the Blue Stable, who's been right on multiple occasions, Jason Spears for The Culture, hey, he's hearing the same thing. We've been hearing rumblings of the same thing. So again, we'll see how it all plays out. Are the Colts close to signing Odell Beckham Jr.? No, they are not. And I want to make that very clear.
Don't believe you wrote that in your article.
Where I didn't, because they're not. They're not yet. But
clickbait blogger boy.
That's me. Call me Dan Dockett's probably rolling in his grave. Well, he's not dead, but you get it. Dead to me. But so that's what we talk about. Now, I want to ask you this, and then I'll give my 40-minute response. Do you think Odell Beckham Jr. helps this Colts team, even if he can't? Now the timeline for him to come back is probably at earliest late October, early November. But do you think Odell Beckham Jr. would help this Colts team, and would you be on board with the signing?
I'd be on board. I love Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, he's a little whiny, pansy on occasion, but I think he's grown out of that a bit. Aside from saying that he'd be willing to miss the Super Bowl because his first kid was being born. Hey, man, literally you blasted yourself in the face with a kicker's net because all you want to do is win a Super Bowl so bad. Hey, Alexa, shut the fuck up.
Explicit.
So I was doing well. Anyway, yeah, I mean, he'd be a great replacement for when Paris Campbell gets hurt. Fit him right in there.
Or he could be a nice compliment to Paris Campbell when Paris Campbell goes for 900 yards and 6 tuds.
Here's the fact. Here's the facts. You might not like Odell Beckham Jr. You may not like his personality, but he's a damn good wide receiver. Still is a damn good wide receiver. And all that attitude and all that fire is a desire to win. And that's my true opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really believe the guy just wants to win football games and win another Super Bowl.
Well, here's the thing. When he went to LA last year, everything coming out of the Rams organization was how great of a teammate he was, his work ethic, and how he didn't care what his role was. He wanted to do what was asked of him by Sean McVay, by Matthew Stafford in that Rams offense to win.
Yep.
He saw it with the Giants. He saw it with the Browns. Maybe as a 29-year-old, finally clicked in his mind that, hey, this isn't about stats. I need to go out there and seriously do what it takes to win a Super Bowl. I think Odell Beckham Jr. has matured. Now, would I say he's going to be a leader? Like if the Colts signed T.Y. Hilton? Absolutely not. That would not be his role. But coming into the Colts and helping them down the stretch run and down and potentially into the playoffs,
Playoffs.
That could be a big boost for this Colts team, especially when you have Paris Campbell, who we don't know if he can stay healthy. If one of these Colts
Also, by the way, Paris, if you're listening, I'm not trying to put any bad juju on you. I'm just making a bad joke.
Well, it's not even just Paris Campbell. If one of these Colts wide receivers goes down, they're in big trouble because of how thin. Imagine if knock on wood, I'm not even going to say it. Number 11 goes down. Colts are in bad shape. So adding a T.Y. Hilton or an Odell Beckham Jr. would greatly help the depth of this wide receiver group and be a big help down the stretch.
All right, we got to move it along. Injury designations. The PUP list remains the same. Linebacker Darius Shaquille Leonard, and wide receiver Mike Strawn. Okay. Whitelaw, we disagree on this one today, pal, but that's all right. We've gotten along most of the day. Colts place wide receiver John Hurst and guard / tackle Carter O'Donnell on IR. Colts signed defensive tackle Kavion Patton, center Alex Smollett, and wide receiver DJ Montgomery. And the Colts released defensive end Brian Cox Jr. We like to call those camp ads and drops.
It was funny. The Colts released that tweet saying the Colts signed wide receiver, and then it was DJ Montgomery. Wasn't T.Y. Hilton or Odell Beckham, but man, they got us for half a second there.
All right, news around the league.
News around the league
it is. Oh boy. We're not talking long about this. We're gonna give the facts. We're gonna give the facts about what was decided and what's still going on, and probably leave it at that. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy, decided by former federal judge Sue L. Robinson. No additional fine will be levied against Watson. NFL has decided to appeal the 6-game suspension, obviously in favor of suspending him longer. Correct. And the NFLPA plans to sue the NFL in federal court over the appeal. I assume because the NFL and the NFLPA decided to use someone more neutral, like a former judge.
So probably because of how it was decided, NFLPA is of course going to sue and take this to federal court. And if it does, there's a chance Watson is out there for week 1. But what has happened now is that the NFL had, I'm trying to think of the right word. Originally, the NFL had wanted the ruling to be an indefinite suspension of Deshaun Watson and a fine of up to, I think it was it's either $12 million or a fine that was equal to his salary last year with the Texans. Something to that effect, which could have been around $20 million. So now it goes, since the NFL is appealing, it's going to be heard by somebody that of Commissioner Roger Goodell's choice. It's not Roger Goodell. He said it very well could have been Roger Goodell that ruled on the appeal, but he has since said that it won't be him. And I'm not sure if they have named the person yet. If they have, I'm not sure who that person's name is, but it will be another neutral party that hears the appeal. And again, the NFL will be pushing for a longer suspension for Deshaun Watson. The stats Matt said that it's somebody on an NFL board. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this right now. Jacoby Brissett right now will be the starting quarterback for the Browns. Attaboy Jacoby. But this Deshaun Watson thing is still going to go on for a few more weeks before it's finally decided, and it's probably going to get ugly between the NFL and the NFLPA.
And football Twitter probably should have gotten more than 6 games. Looking at other suspensions that have happened in the past for other things, and I think that's what's really got a lot of people riled up as well. I mean, aside from what he allegedly did, I believe I read somewhere, and I do not know if this was fact, but if true, makes sense. I suppose the NFL they didn't have enough evidence. There wasn't enough actual evidence against Deshaun, which I believe, if the judge was doing her job, she's got to go based on evidence, right? But again, people have been suspended for more, for less, and fine would be great.
From what
He
I've
just made a lot of
heard,
extra money. I think he could afford a fine.
from what I've heard, the NFL presented 5 or 6 of the cases against Watson instead of all 24. And,
Right.
and maybe they made the rules solely off those 5 or 6 cases. Stats Matt said that Peter Harvey is the man that's going to be reviewing the appeal and making the final decision.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see. It's not over. This is going to go on to probably into the regular season.
Watson has also agreed to settle 3 of the remaining 4 civil lawsuits against him. By the way, just give him a massage chair or make guys massage him from now on in the team facility only.
He is now not allowed to seek massages from anybody outside of the Browns organization.
And I believe that's why they should hire a male masseuse that's only for Deshaun.
That kind of sounds like I'm not going to say anymore, but hey, when that's in the
NFL
ruling,
has stripped the Dolphins of their 2023 first round draft pick and 2024 third round pick for violating the integrity of the game. The Dolphins owner Stephen Ross also suspended through October 17th and fined $1.5 million.
So I'll explain why this fine and the loss of draft picks happened. So it was found that the Dolphins tampered with Tom Brady, quarterback Tom Brady, were in talks with him while he was still with the Patriots during his last year and during his last season with the Buccaneers about him possibly joining the Miami Dolphins. So while he was still under contract for both teams. Not only that,
I think it's kind of bullshit the player doesn't get in any trouble for this either.
I just think it's really weird that whenever we're talking about these scandals,
Tom Brady's always
involved.
Honest man. Hilarious on the internet.
Hilarious. Probably watching our show.
Probably. Yeah. Tom Brady, where are you to defend yourself?
What do you have to say for yourself? But anyways, and then on top of all that, they were talking with Sean Payton, coach of the New Orleans Saints, while he was still under contract with the New Orleans Saints. And then finally, the talk of possibly trying to lose games and tank to better their position in the 2020 NFL draft. When as Tom Brady says, I did nothing wrong. Sure you didn't, bud. That's all all of that together has culminated in the loss of the first round pick, a third round pick in 2024, Dolphins owner being suspended and fined $1.5 million. And the thing is, the Dolphins still have a first round pick in this upcoming draft.
Did you hear that?
Is Alexa talking again?
Yeah. All right. I don't know. I don't know how to turn this setting off where she just keeps telling me people are in the kitchen. I don't care. I mean, like every time I come home. Cardinals wide receiver Marquise Brown was arrested Wednesday morning for criminal speeding. Boy, did I see some memes about this one.
Dude was going 126 miles per hour. Yikes. Hollywood Brown, I mean, buddy, you're not starting off very well with your new team out there in Arizona.
I saw some jokes about him being suspended for more games than Watson.
Yikes.
And different things like that. Very funny stuff. 49ers and wide receiver Deebo Samuel agree to a 3-year $71.55 million extension with $58.1 million guaranteed. Was part of that agreement also that he plays wide receiver and not running back?
I think Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers got the picture. I don't think they're going to be putting him in a hybrid running back wide receiver role anytime. But hey, good for Deebo. Definitely well-deserved. One of the best wide receivers in the game.
Steelers and wide receiver Deontay Johnson agreed to a 2-year, $36.71 million extension with $27 million guaranteed. Okay.
So Johnson was holding into training camp. He was there, but wasn't practicing because this was the final year of his deal. He wanted some assurance for the future, and he gets it. So I think it's a good deal on both sides because Johnson's a pretty good wide receiver.
Cardinals and offensive tackle DJ Humphries agreed to a 3-year, $66.8 million extension with $34 million guaranteed. And can we keep going here?
Keep it going.
Cowboys signed former Vikings linebacker Anthony Barr.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. And then the Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick suffers a torn ACL in practice, potentially out for the season. And
Tim Patrick, man, I feel bad for him because he was ascending to end last year, and now he's got Russell Wilson. He could be the third wide receiver on that team behind Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. He was probably going to have a pretty decent year. So just terrible luck for Tim Patrick.
Yeah, and Buccaneers center Ryan Jensen suffers season-ending knee injury in practice, and I heard Tom Brady retired after that again.
That's a big injury for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because Ryan Jensen, one of the best centers in the league, guy that Tom Brady really trusts, and now they're going to have to put a guy that in there under center that Brady really hasn't worked with a lot. I mean, I'm sure Brady, the professional, the quarterback that he is, they'll be able to make it work, but it's still a pretty big blow to the Buccaneers offensive line that's already missing 2 starters in the middle there.
All right, go follow us at a Colts Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and the Facebook. And while you're there, make sure to also go check out the Colts Podcast ticket giveaway. 2 tickets to the Colts versus the Lions, August 20th, 1 p.m. at Lucas Oil Stadium. Preseason game. Rules are like a Colts Podcast on Facebook. Don't have a Facebook? Get a Facebook. Follow a Colts Podcast at a Colts Podcast, at Andrew Moore NFL, and at BM Moses 2M's 9 on Twitter. Man, I can talk. And subscribe to a Colts Podcast on YouTube. If you don't have any of those things, download them and use it. I mean, I don't care. If you want the tickets, do that. And if you want an extra ticket entry, take a screenshot of your review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and shoot it over to me or Andrew or the Colts Podcast account on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want. Andrew, kind sir, do you have anything else for the lovely fans of a Colts Podcast?
Get your entries in for that ticket giveaway. It's going to be a fun day there at Lucas Oil Stadium. So get those in.
Andrew's doing the count all on his own. So
yeah, I'm going to count it up. I'm going to pick a winner. It's going to be fun. But hey, I'll be down there in Westfield on Sunday.
A random winner, by the way. Stats Matt is not going to win.
Stats Matt, I don't know if he's eligible.
Everybody will call bullshit if Stats Matt wins.
But yeah, I'll be in
Tom
Westfield.
Brady will probably end up winning that bastard.
I'll be down there in Westfield on Sunday. Again, bringing you all the action from Colts camp, and more pads are going to be on. It's going to be fun.
Wait, you might want to make sure your Twitter handle and whatnot all kind of match up with your YouTube name and your Facebook. We're going to need to know who you are. Otherwise, you're probably out of luck. Andrew's going to do some. All right, Andrew. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week, I believe, with week 3 update. And until then, everybody, go Colts.
Go Colts.
Let this moment become a cherished memory. And then remember, a legacy is only worthwhile when there is a future to fuel. God bless you, and God bless football.